And welcome into Twins Takes. I'm Twin Central, joined with a special guest this afternoon. Some of you know him by Kyle. Most of you know him by Straight Outta Min on Twitter. Kyle, how are you doing this afternoon?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I figured there was no better time to do it than when some guys needed to be held accountable.
Yeah, there's definitely several guys on the pitching and hitting side that could use a little accountability for sure.
Yeah, I think there's also a guy wearing the manager's jersey that we're both going to have an issue with, but we'll get into more of that later. The Twins did go 0-3 in Pittsburgh. Two of the games, one-run losses, and then today's game just not competitive at all.
Yeah, it was about as tough of a watch as you can find for a baseball game, honestly. I mean, bad starting pitching, bad at bats, didn't hit till late. Wasn't much to like at all.
Yeah, there was not much to like at all. There was some stuff that was interesting off the field roster wise. Simeon Woods Richardson was DFA'd this weekend. John Klein was recalled. We'll have more on that later in the show as one of our main topics. There was also some shuffling in the bullpen. Cody Funderburk was called up to replace Travis Adams, who is now back on the roster once again. Cody Lawyerson was also activated off the IL to replace Kendry Rojas, who landed on the IL with an injury. Just a really unfortunate situation to see Rojas. We saw him scratch from the start. I think that was Thursday to see him land on the injured list.
Yeah, Rojas was looking really, really solid. I mean, still control hasn't been the best, but I mean, for a lefty, he's putting up high 90s and he's got some pretty good breaking stuff as well. So definitely a blow to the team, especially with Ober and SWR gone for now.
Yeah, both of them gone for now. Mick Abel's still on the IL. Obviously, Taj Bradley has been hurt lately. So a lot of question marks just in the rotation, and the depth there is awfully thin now. They don't even have a fifth starter on the roster with Sim gone. I'm guessing they're probably kicking themselves in the front office for, DFAing him, then immediately having a starter go down. They could, even if he wasn't necessarily good, they could definitely use him, giving them a few innings right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if he clears waivers because, I mean, he's going to be right back on the major league team. So I would not be shocked at all if he's starting a game later this week. But I think some teams might want to take a flyer on him as well. So we'll see. I
Yeah,
mean, you kind of have to reclaim at this point.
I would be kind of surprised if he even gets to waivers. I think a team will jump the waiver wire and trade something for him. I think the Twins will get, a Dominican League prospect or maybe a Florida Coast League prospect, just a younger lottery ticket type, kind of like they got for Jorge Alcala last year. Sim was good last year. He's been good for a few years. So I think, like you said, he's certainly going to be a higher end waiver guy. It'd be pretty surprising if he cleared waivers, in my opinion.
I would agree. Yes.
In other news, Bailey Ober, as Kyle said, he is now out of the rotation. He was placed on the IL this morning with shoulder inflammation. He did not have a good start yesterday. He gave up 12 hits, the most he's given up in a start in his career. Mike Paredes was called up. We saw him pitch this afternoon. He was effective. The first inning he was in, he threw 8 straight balls, allowed 2 runners to reach base, and gave up 3 runs, I believe. But after that, settled down nicely. Did you get to see any of Paredes in action, Kyle?
Yeah, I saw you obviously looked a little rattled to start, which is pretty normal for a guy coming up and making their first appearance. But I thought he settled down. I didn't think his stuff was anything special, to be honest. But about a 94 mile an hour fastball with decent off speed. We'll should be able to play especially in this bullpen. So it was good to see some good results for him as well.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the plan is for him. He is a guy that could start. He started 7 games for St. Paul, 3.38 ERA, so was pretty good there. He's sort of a non-prospect. He was taken in the 18th round in the 2021 draft out of San Diego State, so a definite developmental win for the Twins here. Not a guy that you expect even make the majors. Whether he's good or not, that's kind of besides the point. But I think he'll probably get an extended look, although there is a chance, much like John Klein yesterday, he gave him 60 pitches today that they say, thanks for your service, and then send him down and replace him on the roster tomorrow.
That would be my expectation. I would expect to see him on the St. Paul roster come tomorrow, just because they need some fresh arms. I mean, they got still got about 10 straight games to play, so they're going to need fresh arms.
Yeah, it's at least a week here of games. They have 3 against the White Sox and then 4 against the Royals. And then I'm not sure if there's an off day or if there's one more series in there. I'm not for sure on that. In other news, Ricardo Olivar, who was recently promoted to St. Paul, a decent prospect, somewhere around 20th in the organization, he was carted off the field in St. Paul's game this afternoon. So unfortunate for him. I'm not sure entirely what happened. I just saw a JD Cameron tweet, who writes for Twins Daily and also has a podcast of his own. So that's the Ricardo Olivar news. We'll have more on that once we get it in the midweek episode. And then here's a topic that I'm sure you have very strong opinions. Well, I'm not sure you are. I know you are. Byron Buxton still not playing center field. Wasn't in the lineup today. DH both Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, it's definitely a little concerning, especially after last weekend. Shelton said that he was doing better. The hip was feeling a lot better. And he actually played a little center field in Boston, I believe 1 game, and now we're a week from that, and now apparently there's some shoulder concerns. There's still the hip, and obviously they're putting Cody Clemens out in center, so he's definitely he's probably not 95% or even close to that if they're willing to go with a guy that's never played center field in his major league career and doesn't look great doing it. So definitely a little concerning. Seems like he can still swing all right, but yeah, I'm a little worried.
Yeah, his bat has been okay. I don't think he's homered since Wednesday, and in was that Boston or whoever that was, or no, Chicago. So he had gone a few days without a homer. Of course, that's not that long for your average player, but for a guy like Byron Buxton, that's somewhat of a home run drought. Wasn't in the lineup today, like I mentioned. Now we'll transition to the decision to DFA Simeon Woods Richardson. I know I have a pretty strong take on this, but I want to get your thoughts on it first. Do you think that this was the right move for the Twins, or do you think that this was a mistake?
I think it was a mistake. I mean, this bullpen isn't strong. He's a guy that's had good results the past couple of years, and in the cup, obviously, it was only a few relief appearances, short relief, but he looked all right. I think his stuff looked a little better. Curveball looked pretty sharp, so I think it's a mistake. I don't understand it. He's a younger guy. He's a lot better than some journeymen in AAA, I would say, in the bullpen. So bad decision in my opinion.
Yeah, I had a tweet that got a lot of both positive and negative replies yesterday when this move was announced. I was strongly against it. There's no sugarcoating it. He's been awful this year, one of the worst pitchers in Major League Baseball. Negative 1.4 B WAR, an ERA of 7.74 and 47 2/3 innings pitched. The strikeouts are way down, striking out under 5 hitters per 9 innings. But look at his prior 2 years: 2024 2.0 B WAR, 2025 2.1 B WAR, and just a fantastic September. I believe an ERA under 3. The splitter was working magnificently for him. He didn't even really have a rotation battle. They handed him the 5th spot in the rotation. So the Twins had belief in him. For them to make this decision not even 2 months later to have him not just out of the rotation, but completely, in all likelihood, out of the organization is just baffling to me.
Yeah, it just feels like bad process for a team that has a weak bullpen and not a lot of obvious guys to come up and take those spots.
Yeah, and like you said, they didn't even really get a look at him in the bullpen, which is where my frustration with this decision lies. I know there's a lot of people that say, he doesn't throw all that hard. He doesn't have a real put-away pitch, so there's no chance that he's a good reliever. But there is a chance. Is it high? I'm not going to say yes, but if it's even 10 or 20% that he's a decent reliever, that's something that this team could absolutely use.
100%. I was pretty disappointed to see them throw him out for another inning the other day, which ultimately, of course, led to him being DFA'd after he struggled in that 3rd inning. But first 2, he looked effective. So I think his short relief outings were looking pretty solid, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that decision to throw him in another inning is ultimately, at least what the Twins said, is what cost him. They said on the broadcast that Shelton basically said they just needed an arm, and Sim was one of the only guys that could go. If that's the case, which I'm going to take them at face value, that's awful handling of your pitching staff. If your back is in such a wall that you have to DFA a promising guy just to get somebody up here to eat 2 or 3 innings, like Travis Adams, like John Klein, like Mike Paredes today, that's on your bullpen more than anything, and also on the coaching staff for not having enough guys that can, go multiple innings.
Couldn't agree more.
Speaking of bad starters, the Twins got 3 bad starts in this series. The staff as a whole allowed they pitched 12 innings, allowed 19 runs. My math isn't good, but that's very, very bad. Taj Bradley Friday night, 4 innings pitched, allowed 4 runs, gave up a few homers. That's the game Brian Reynolds hit that back-breaking walk-off homer against Taylor Rogers on. The Twins, I believe there was 2 outs. There was either 1 or 2 outs, so they had him backs against the wall, and the Pirates walked him off. Then Bailey Ober yesterday, 4 2/3 innings. He allowed 8 runs, a career-high 12 hits. He gave up 2 homers. And then Zebby Matthews today, 4 1/3 innings, 7 runs. He also allowed 2 home runs. So the home runs really biting the Twins. I don't watch a lot of Pirates games just because they're in the NL. I didn't realize how short the right field, wall was there.
Yeah, and that they got some guys that can hit the ball for sure. O'Neal Cruz, a pretty good player, but I will say when you got guys pumping fastballs down the middle like Ober and Zebby, especially against that team, it's not going to work very well. I wouldn't say I'm too concerned about Taj. The velo was still there. I felt like that was just a typical bad start. If that's your really bad start, you're doing just fine. But Ober obviously went on the IL. He was off speed, was over the middle way too often, and we know that 87, 88 mile an hour fastballs aren't going to cut it in this league. And then Zebby, I don't know what your take on Zebby is. I think his fastball just isn't. It's just too straight. It gets crushed. It's got some velo, but at the major league level, it seems to be absolutely crushed. So if he's not dotting it, it can be hit.
Yeah, I'm a guy that's personally not in on Zebby Matthews as a starting pitcher. I did want to talk to you about him a little bit. Like you said, Taj, this is hopefully just a blip on the radar. I'm not going to freak out about that too much. And Bailey Ober is obviously now out injured, so we don't need to talk about him very much. But Zebby Matthews all of a sudden is going to have a big role in this rotation, whether he likes it or not, whether the Twins like it or not. He's going to be a mainstay in this rotation until they get a little bit healthier. And like you said, the fastball is not good. He throws a lot of strikes, which, is good in terms of not walking people. But those strikes that he throws are often, like you said, right down the middle, and the fastball gets crushed.
Yeah, I mean, this week in his 2 starts, he gave up 4 homers in 10 innings. That's not what you're looking for from your major league pitchers, and that it's because that fastball is getting crushed, and if he's not getting swings on his off speed, which is decent, and he leaves that over the middle, it's plenty hittable as well. So definitely concerning. 10 runs in 10 innings this week, but they got to keep him up here to fight through it because they don't even have a 5th starter right now.
Yeah, they simply have no other option, so they're going to have to let him work through it here. He's a guy that reminds me a lot of Louis Varland when he was starting a few years ago. He had, a decent velo on his fastball, but he just gave up way too many homers, and it wouldn't surprise me if, like we're seeing with Louis Varland last year with the Twins and now with the Blue Jays, who's one of the best relievers in baseball, if Zebby is a very good reliever. But I think the chances that he's anything more than a back-end starter is pretty low.
Yeah, I would love to see them start the transition to reliever at some point, maybe next spring training, but if they can get Pablo and a few other guys healthy. But yeah, as of now, they're just going to have to see what he's got as a starter, and hopefully he can really work on that command, because I think the stuff is fine. The command has been the problem in my view.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. We are now at the end of May. The calendar flips to June tomorrow. The Twins are 27-33. They're still just 2 back in the wild card. The AL still off to a slow start. Some of the teams that we thought were going to be pretty competitive, like Kansas City, certainly like Detroit, have just been abysmal this far. But they're 6.5 back in the division. Cleveland 34-27, Chicago 32-27. The Twins are still 5.5 games up on the aforementioned Royals and Tigers. But with this bad stretch of baseball, this road trip got off to a good start in Boston, but then they stubbed their toe in Chicago and then just got absolutely dominated here in Pittsburgh. Do you think that this is all they wrote on this season as far as being competitive goes?
Yeah, watching really sharp baseball, making a lot of winning plays, a lot of clutch swings, and even Monday and Tuesday against Chicago, I thought they really played some good baseball. They obviously lost one of those games, but they were 2 fun games against a good team where they were pretty sharp out there. The pitching was solid, but the last 5 days, yeah, just the train has went off the tracks. So I don't know if I'd say the season's obviously not over yet. They've been a team the last couple of years. It's had a lot of highs and lows. It's been like a roller coaster up and down their seasons, but it's hard to look at this team right now and think that they have the horses to really make a run at playoff con-
Yeah, I would agree with that. It just seems like the lineup, you look at the lineup, we talked about this a little bit last episode, but the guys hitting 5 through 9 is, Victor Caratini or Alex Jackson, whoever's starting at catcher, and then it's, 3 journeyman shortstop, whether that's Tristan Gray, Ryan Kreidler, or Orlando Arcia, and then it's, Austin Martin, who had a dreadful May. He had an OPS under 600 in the month, hit just 229, so he's really struggled as of late. Trevor Larnach's come back down to earth. I think the lineup is actually the bigger issue. The pitching is likely going to struggle, but that's more so due to injuries. The bullpen has actually been really good here lately, so it's not even the bullpen, which I know everybody on this podcast, I'm not sure about you. I'm sure you would agree. If you thought an issue was going to be had with this team, you would have guessed it was the bullpen. That hasn't really been the case as of late.
Yeah, obviously the bullpen had a stretch there early in May, late April, where they looked a little rough. They've looked better the last couple of weeks. Rogers gave up that homer yesterday, but I mean, I'd call him pretty much a lefty specialist at this point in his career, and I think he's filled his role just fine. But yeah, I would say the lineup's the problem. I mean, you got yesterday, I believe they had Josh Bell hitting third and Victor Caratini hitting fifth. Those just can't be your big boppers. Bell's got a 565 OPS this month, and Caratini comes in at 488 this month. I mean, that's just not major league quality. Major league quality lineup that's going to get it done most of the time. And then the bottom of the lineup, of course, of Outman and Gray, and I mean, if Alex Jackson's playing, it's just not good enough. So there's going to have to be some changes if they want to be competitive going forward.
Yeah, speaking of a change they've made over this past week, it hasn't been James Outman in center field with Byron Buxton DHing. It's been Cody Clemens. He started all 3 games in center field this series. We did see him move over to first base late in a few of those games, but just what are your general thoughts? I know we talked about it on this podcast last episode, so everybody's kind of heard our thoughts on it. We at the time kind of thought, it was just a 1-game thing, but it seems like, I guess this is the plan while Buxton's DH only.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit I'm very confused by the decision making there. If you don't trust Outman to be that backup center fielder guy when Buxton's hurt, I mean, why is he on your roster? I mean, if he's not stealing bases when he's pinch running in big spots, like why is he on your roster? I mean, it just feels like, he got hot a little bit after the atrocious start, and he's just right back to looking overmatched at the plate, just late on everything. Just not much to like from James Outman, and I expect that we see him probably off this team in the next 3 to 7 days, next couple days would be my prediction.
Yeah, I was actually going to make a similar prediction that I think he's off the roster tomorrow. They return back to Minnesota, so they'll have a plethora of guys to choose from. I'm not sure if the Saints are at home or if they're on the road, but that doesn't really matter. They can get a flight to Minneapolis pretty easily wherever they're at. I think, we've seen them be aggressive here on the pitching side. It doesn't make any sense to make an aggressive move with a Simeon Woods Richardson type who you're invested in his future, but then keep Outman on the roster, who, even if everything goes well, isn't going to be on the team next year. So I'm going to make a prediction that he is off the roster by tomorrow's game. That remains to be seen. We'll have an update if that is the case. Hopefully it is. I think I speak for both of us. In positive news, Brooks Lee had a good Sunday performance. Really the only guy that did much in the lineup. He homered twice, one real long one, both to right field. His OPS now back to a respectable 740. He does have 8 home runs on the year, so he's on pace for somewhere around 22, 23 homers. He hit 16 last year, so the power is still developing. The defense at third base has been oddly not good. Like, he had a throw, I believe it was Friday. It was going to be a tough play, but he threw it, 10 feet wide of Josh Bell. He had another throwing error earlier in the week. Just What are your general thoughts on Lee's roller coaster of a, first third of a season here?
Yeah, I think roller coaster is definitely the way to describe what he's been doing at the plate and in the field. His first couple seasons, honestly. This was a good Brooks Lee week. He had an OPS over 1,000, hit 3 homers, obviously. So it was a very good week for him, but it's just the numbers really, the underlying stuff for Lee really isn't changing. He's not crushing the ball. He doesn't have ideal peripherals, and it just feels like he needs to sustain it for 3 to 4 weeks before I get really excited about him. But I do think he sometimes will take some really good at bats and he'll string those together. And when he's lining the ball around the park, he really is a fun player to watch. It does a lot for this team.
Yeah, he is a fun player to watch, and he has been very good with runners in scoring position. We talked about that last episode. I believe he has over a 400 average in those situations. Another middle infielder that has been good over the last month is Luke Keeschel. He finishes May with a 291 average, a walk to strikeout ratio of 11-14, so walking nearly as much as he strikes out. The power still isn't there. Homer just once in the month of May. He actually had a higher OBP than a slugging percentage, slugged just 392. So the power is still not there for Keeschel, but this is much more in line with what our expectations were, I think.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm looking for from Luke to see if he's going or if he's starting to heat up is his exit velocities, but also the pitches he's swinging at. Sometimes when he's struggling, he just takes some really wild hacks at the plate, and sometimes his helmet will fall off. Sometimes he'll kind of almost fall over or do a little spin. But when he's balanced and he's really seeing the ball well and recognizing pitches, and just, again, another guy that you just want to see lining the ball around the field, not necessarily for homers, but just putting it in play, barreling the ball up. That's when he's going good. And I'd say he's been doing that the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree with that. Hopefully he can maintain that into June. Hopefully some of that power starts to show once again. The other thing that stood out to me in this series, I believe it was Friday when the Twins were playing on Apple TV, who still have the best picture in any sport when you watch their games. It's phenomenal how much more clear it is than when you're watching on a Twins TV production. But they had a stat down in the corner that said Victor Caratini has the second slowest pop time in all of Major League Baseball. I believe it was a 2.05 pop time. That was something that stood out all series. The pitchers weren't holding runners well, and they just ran all over the Twins all weekend long. This is a big issue for Minnesota.
Yeah, it's a bad combo. You got a team that doesn't necessarily hold runners on, and you got a fast team on the other side, especially if a guy like O'Neal Cruz that just loves to steal bases and just feels complete confidence when he's going up against a lot of the pitches that the Twins have. Yeah, I think Caratini's arm is solid, but it really kind of negates the arm if his pop time is starting to slow down to one of the worst in the league. That is a little concerning. It is going to make it pretty hard to throw out runners.
Yeah, and this is a guy that's in line to be the starting catcher next season. Obviously, we've talked about it a lot this year with his slow start. He signed a 2-year deal. This is the second time the Twins have given a former Houston catcher that was on the wrong side of 30 a multiple-year deal, and they haven't looked good almost right out of the gate. So a concerning trend for the Twins and Caratini. Hopefully that's something that they can improve upon. We will take a quick break here. On the other side, we'll take a look at our minor league player of the week, a look around the AL Central, and then preview the upcoming homestand with the Chicago White Sox and Kansas City Royals. Stick with us.
Breaking news.
Well, I got some bad news for you.
And welcome back into Twin Stakes. I'm Twin Central, still joined here with our special guest Kyle, or Straight Out of Min on Twitter, as we continue to break down what went wrong in Pittsburgh this weekend. And we'll also take a quick look at the upcoming series with the Chicago White Sox. But first, let's take a look at our minor league player of the week this week, someone that everybody knows, shortstop Kalen Culpepper with the St. Paul Saints had a really good week. He was 8 for 25. That's a 320 average, homered twice, 4 RBIs, walked 6 times, stole a base. That's all good for an OPS of a 1.012. So really solid week for Culpepper. When do you think we see him, Kyle?
I definitely think they don't want to rush him. They've seen some prospects, especially hitting prospects, kind of flame out in the past couple of years. So they definitely, I think, want to be careful there. But he's pounding on the door, to be honest. I don't know if it's going to be this week or next week, or maybe it depends on if someone gets injured. I'm sure we could see a guy like Elman be DFA'd. I don't think Culpepper would be the immediate replacement there, obviously, as he is an infielder. But Culpepper's leading the Saints in home runs and stolen bases, which is always a really good combo. So he's got that power speed that a lot of the rising stars have in the game right now. So it's great to see. He's playing well. His defense will definitely be a plus to the team. So I think we see him in the next month. I don't know if it's in the next week or two, though.
Yeah, just with top prospects, it seems like they typically like to debut them at home. Could it be as soon as tomorrow? Yes, but I think that's probably unlikely. So maybe not this homestand, but the next homestand is one to keep an eye on. Of course, he could debut on the road. It just seems like, especially the Twins, trying to sell tickets, it would make more sense for him to debut at home. But now we'll take a quick look around the AL Central. The Cleveland Guardians still in first place. They're 34 and 27. They have a 6-game road trip, 3 at the Yankees and then 3 in Texas to take on the Rangers. Then the White Sox, who the Twins will face early in the week, they're 32 and 27 in second place. They have 3 in Minnesota, obviously. And then in interleague series with the Phillies, 3 games there. Murataka Murakami was placed on the IL over the weekend, so the Twins will miss one of the best rookies in all of baseball.
Yeah, I'm sure they are very excited to not see him in Minneapolis tomorrow, because he definitely torched some of the other earlier this week. Hit that big homer against Ryan. Obviously, just a very good player who has such a good knowledge of the zone. Obviously strikes out a lot, but he's one of those 3 true outcome guys who will get you a lot of good at bats, a lot of walks. But
they did call up another former top prospect to replace him on the roster. They called up Jacob Gonzalez, who was their first round pick a few years ago. So it'll be interesting to get a look at him. I think some of the prospect shine has worn off a little bit, but still a guy that's fairly highly thought of. So I'll be curious to see what he looks like. And then the Twins in third place, obviously, and then Kansas City and Detroit, both in the cellar. Kansas City, 22 and 36. They have 3 at the Reds, and then they come to Minneapolis for a 4-game set with the Twins. And then the Detroit Tigers, 22 and 38. They have 3 in Florida with the Tampa Bay Rays. Then they return to Detroit to host the Seattle Mariners for 3. They have the worst record in the league at the time we're recording this. That's not just the AL. That's all of baseball. They have 1 game up in the loss column on the Colorado Rockies. Just how surprised are you that the Tigers are so bad? They are missing Tarek Skubal, but that shouldn't make them, 16 games below 500.
it's definitely surprising. I wasn't as high on them as some, but obviously Skubal is a great pitcher, and he was doing well before he was hurt. But it's just the rest of the rotation and lineup is just not getting it done. Valdez is getting knocked around a lot. He's not anywhere near where they'd like him to be. I think their lineup is what has been shocking me. Guys like Riley Green and Kerry Carpenter, who was hurt but wasn't, or I think he just came back today or yesterday, but he wasn't getting it done before he was hurt either. So, and Spencer Torkelson, he looks like Royce Lewis up there. Honestly, I think they have pretty similar stats. So I feel like that's a fair comparison to make for a couple of top prospects. But yeah, I feel just awful watching Twins games a lot of the time this year. They've been underperforming, but I don't want to know what the Tigers fans are feeling like with the expectations they had going into this season.
Yeah, it's kind of like what the Twins were like last year. People expected the Twins to be pretty competitive, and then they just weren't. You're probably going to see a similar sell-off. You're almost certainly going to see Tarek Skubal traded with Scott Boras as his agent. As long as he can come back healthy, who we'll see where he goes. Now we'll transition to our series takeaways for this series in Pittsburgh. Mine is pretty simple. It's the next few months are going to be tough to watch with these journeyman players up here. We've seen them on the hitting side. Now we're starting to see them on the pitching side. And it's probably going to be pretty boring and hard to watch until some of these prospects are called up. When the prospects are called up, the baseball might even be worse, but at least it's a little more exciting to watch, a Gabriel Gonzalez struggle than a James Outman.
Yeah, 100% there. I think my big takeaway is that starting pitching is now a serious concern, which you would not have thought going into this year with how much ownership and management talked about the starting pitching depth. But now they're looking for a fifth guy in the rotation after some injuries and some underperformance, obviously. But yeah, that is the most concerning thing to me, is that the one strength that this team had going into the year now looks like it could be a weakness for at least the next couple of weeks, and that is going to make it hard to win ball games, I fear.
Yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on that transaction log over the next few days. It seems like whether it's a minor league deal or they claim somebody off waivers, they certainly need to add a guy with length to this team. I think a guy that can start. You look at the Saints roster, the starters down there that could be next in line is like a Ryan Gallagher type, who the Twins received in the Willie Castro trade last year at the deadline. He's, a fine prospect, but not anything to write home about. And then after that, it's just completely gone. It's career minor leaguers beyond him. So in the short term, I think they'll probably just go with like a bullpen type game. You'll get Travis Adams for a few innings. You'll get Andrew Morris for a few innings. You'll get like Mike Paredes, who we saw today. But I certainly think that they need a guy. We did hear about Carmen Ladinsky, who is on the Pirates. He was removed from the rotation and placed on the restricted list because he was, throwing a fit that he was removed from the rotation. I wonder if the Twins try to take him on the plane home with them to Minneapolis.
Yeah, they could use him 100%. Yeah, rotation depth is looking like it for the next couple weeks, looking like it might be hard to come by. You would think that this could be a guy like Marco Raya. I can't remember how to say his last name, but you would think this would be an opening for him. Yeah, Raya, to get to the major league roster, but he just hasn't been doing it in AAA. He's got about a 7 ERA, and I'm sure they want to see more there before they give him a chance at the major league level.
Yeah, and at this point, he's not a guy that really throws for much length, but yeah, I certainly would be more excited to see him than see Travis Adams for, the 17th time. We know he's not a real good pitcher at this point in his career. Now we'll touch quickly on Twins Insider and Troy's takeaways. They could not be with us this afternoon, but hopefully will be with us on the midweek episode. Insiders has to do with James Outman. He says Outman is a defense and pinch running bench player who they don't trust to play in center field over a first baseman and wouldn't steal in a one-run game in the ninth inning. I know that's something you talked about earlier in the episode. That's very frustrating to, have him here basically just a pinch run, and then he watches the game from first base.
Yeah, it makes no sense, and it's just another reason I do not think we see him on this team come next week. We might see him tomorrow, but unless something turns around and maybe it's a couple homers or something, I just don't see it. I think he's gone.
Yeah, but he has to play to hit homers, and they haven't really been playing him lately. So we'll see if that happens or not. It's hard to hit homers from the bench, which you can't blame him for not playing him.
True.
And then Troy's is something we also talked about earlier. The bullpen shuffling has been aggressive, whether by injury or not. When does that shuffling happen with the lineup? That's something we talked about a little bit earlier, so we won't talk too much about it. But hopefully they make some moves here, because they just can't continue on with this current crop of guys they have.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I do think some of the guys that they were counting on into the season have looked better. Bonda's looked really good, in my opinion. He's got some velocity back. I think he's the best reliever they got in the pen right now. I know some people are a big fan of Morris because he throws hard, but I think Bonda, as a veteran, a little more around the zone, I think he's been looking really sharp. But yeah, the bottom of that bullpen is just kind of a revolving door, and they just got to find someone, maybe Klein, that can just be at the back of the pen and just be fairly reliable. Doesn't have to be great, but fairly reliable. Throw some strikes, get some outs.
Yeah, Bonda did have a good month of May. Like you said, the velo was up in his last few appearances. It seems like we'll start to see him consistently in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning for Derek Shelton. Now we'll take a quick preview of the Chicago White Sox. Of course, the Twins just played them earlier this week. They are 32-27. They're 7th in the league in runs scored, 4th in home runs, 11th in stolen bases, 9th in WRC plus. On the pitching side, just 19th in ERA, 22nd in FIP, so not a real strong staff, although they were good against the Twins earlier this week, 19th in K per 9. Their bullpen, 22nd in win probability added, and the defense has taken a significant step forward for them, 13th in OAA, 15th in fielding run value. I know a few years ago, when Tony La Russa was there, they were just throwing the ball all over the park.
Yeah, no doubt. Tim Anderson at the end of his career, and some of those guys were just having a real tough time. But yeah, they're looking a lot sharper, a lot better managed, honestly, and they're looking like a team that is just going to play solid fundamental baseball, which is probably all their fans wanted to see this year. I doubt they had many expectations, but it's hard not to say that they have not overachieved expectations and played pretty decent ball the first 55-ish games.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I noticed earlier this week when the Twins were going up against him is they looked like a major league team again for a while. Like I just said, they looked like a minor league team. They looked like they had never played baseball before. They looked like a real team. They, like you said, they are overperforming a little bit, but they have some talent there, especially in that lineup. The Twins pitching will be up against it once again in game 1 tomorrow night, Monday evening. Right-handed pitcher David Sandlin, who we saw make his debut last week against the Twins. He allowed the leadoff homer to Byron Buxton and then settled in. He goes up against Joe Ryan. So this one, the Twins hopefully have the pitching advantage in, but we saw Sandlin have success against him. He was a pretty powerful arm, and he was around the zone for the most part.
Yeah, and the Twins were definitely helping him out a bit, swinging at some pitches that were not in the strike zone, which they've been a little more prone to do the last couple weeks. But I thought he looked pretty good. He's got decent stuff. Obviously, you would hope the Twins would win that one behind Ryan. I'd almost label that as close to a must-win game personally, if you want to get some momentum going. But no, I think it's going to be a good, well-pitched game, low scoring, and hopefully a good start to the homestand.
Yeah, it's always interesting when these teams play these, not back-to-back, but 2 times in 2-week series, because the same pitchers are going up against the same lineup 2 starts in a row. It seems like that tilts the advantage in favor of the hitters. We'll see if the Twins figured some things out from their first time against the pitcher for the White Sox. In game 2, Connor Prelip gets the ball for Minnesota. He's struggled as of late. He has 8.1 innings pitched in his last 2 starts. He's allowed 12 runs in those 2 starts. The stuff has still been okay. He struck out 5 White Sox last time out, but they had 8 hits against him. How concerned are you about the Twins' young lefty?
I didn't think he was quite ready to be a major league starter, honestly, when he got called up. I think it was more out of necessity. I do think the stuff looks sharp. Obviously, the sweeper slider looks really sharp. It's definitely his best pitch, and it's getting a lot of swing and misses. But over his last 2 starts, he's only went about 8 innings, so about 4 innings a start, which for an arm that hasn't been stretched out much is kind of to be expected. But the strikeout numbers haven't been great, and he's been just getting hit hard, which is not. It's a little concerning for a guy that the main concern is, he's going to walk a lot of people. But if he's also getting hit pretty hard on some mistake pitches, it's not going to lead to success at the major league level.
Yeah, I'll be keeping a close eye on him. We would go a long ways to see him have a successful start, And then in the Twins go up against Davis Martin in that one. He's been one of the best pitchers in all of baseball this year. He's 8-1, a 2.00 ERA, so he's certainly in line to be an all-star for the White Sox. His success has kind of came out of nowhere for the White Sox and just across the league as a whole. I didn't see too many people in the offseason expecting him to be this type of pitcher. And then in the finale, a 12:40 first pitch at Target Field, right-handed pitcher Eric Fetty gets the ball for Chicago. He's 0-5, a 5.40 ERA, but this is a guy that has had success against the Twins in the past. He's started 4 games in his career against the Twins to the tune of a 1.17 ERA. He's 2-0 in those games. So the Twins will try to solve Eric Fetty. This is a guy who a few years ago, reportedly, the Twins tried to trade Luke Keyshaw for, and the trade was declined. Who knows if that is actually true, but thankfully it didn't go through because he hasn't been that good, although he has owned the Twins. Getting the ball for the Twins is Taj Bradley. He's 5-1, 3.21 ERA. Twins could use a Taj Bradley bounce back. We saw him struggle last time out.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, it wasn't a terrible start, but it wasn't anywhere close to his best, and that seems like a good matchup for the Twins to hopefully get ahead early and have Taj kind of give them some length as they still got 7 games in a row here to play. But yeah, and then looking at Davis Martin, the way he just sequences his pitches is as good as you're going to see in the league, honestly. I don't think his stuff is that overpowering, and he's probably overperforming a little bit of where he should be, but he's looked really sharp in the starts I've watched, and the way he just mixes and matches his pitches and works around the zone is it's really good. It's really fun to watch, I would say. I think White Sox fans should be excited about him.
Yeah, it's fun to watch when you're not the opposing team trying to score runs off of him. But that's all the time we have for this episode. Thanks for everyone for joining and listening in. Thanks for Kyle for joining us. This was a fun episode. Thanks for joining, Kyle.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It was a good time.
Yeah, you can find Kyle on Twitter at StraightOutaMin if you don't follow him, although I'm sure everybody does. He has some great takes. Whether they're emotional or not, sometimes they are, but they're certainly relatable as a fan.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Sometimes I let the emotions get the better of me in my tweets, but I try to put out some good stuff, some good, reasonable stuff as well.
Yeah, certainly. I think we've all been there before, but that is all the time we have for this episode. Once again, thanks to Kyle. I'm Twins Central. This was Twins Takes. You can follow us on Twitter at Twins Takes Pod. We'll be back Wednesday with a live episode. Hopefully Troy, Falvey's Mattress, and Twins Insider are back for that one. Use that hashtag #AskTwinsTakes to get involved with the show. In our midweek episode, we'll be hosting another edition of that. And you can follow us at Twins Takes Pod, like I mentioned, for Straight Out of Men /Kyle. I'm Twins Central. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.